Hey everybody, and welcome back to RC Classic Garage and another episode on the GTV 1750 barn find. Now if you've been following this series, you'll know that we dragged this car out of a barn where it had been sitting for the last 40 years, and well, we're bringing it back to life. Now over the last few episodes, we stripped the car, we've rebuilt the engine and gearbox, and we've been tackling this bodywork step by step. And to recap, this right-hand side was the worst side because it was facing the outer wall of the barn for 4 decades. So we've restored the boot. We've restored the rear end of the car, the boot lid. We've done the right rear wing. We've done the floor panels on the driver's side. We've also repaired this right door. We've replaced the outer skin. We've basically chopped the door in half and replaced the whole bottom section. We've replaced the outer sill. We've fixed the inner wings, the cross member, and the bonnet surround. We've done the whole top of the car with sandblasting, the roof, the bonnet top, and the rear end top. So the whole right-hand side and top of the car is all done, and only the left-hand side now remains. Now this side was facing the inside of the barn and is in slightly better condition than the right-hand side. But we are still replacing a lot of panels, including the new rear wing, a new front wing. We'll be doing patches on the floor, as well as replacing the outer sill. Now this outer sill is not too bad, it's just surface rust. But I'll be cutting it away so that we can inspect the middle sill underneath. I'm confident that it's going to be okay. But as we're going to this depth in the rebuild, no metal is going to go unchecked. The floorboards again are generally sound, with one old repair in the front that needs sorting where a drain plug was welded closed. Plus, there's a small bit of rust on the rear floor. And, well, the rear wing is going to be replaced completely to undo bad repairs from years ago. Now, towards the end of the video, I'll have hopefully uncovered everything lurking underneath the metal on this car. And then I'll be able to give you a proper update on the budget, what we've spent to date, what we still have to spend, and what I think the revised budget figure will be. On top of that, I've made a very important decision as to who's going to be painting the car, and I'll be revealing that at the end of the video. So, with a lot to get done today, let's jump straight back into it. Now let's pick up exactly where we left off last time. On this side of the car, the front left inner had some serious damage. The corner had clearly been in an accident years ago, but then the entire wing had been replaced, but unfortunately replaced badly. So the decision was made to cut the whole thing out, and thank goodness we did, because once the wing was off, we uncovered plenty of surprises hidden underneath. The quality of the old repairs was far from factory, and in the front corner, things had been cobbled together just to put the car back on the road. Nothing was square, the wheels weren't neat, the panels didn't line up correctly, and in several places, the repaired metal was actually thinner and weaker than the original. It was one of those cases where if you're going to do it properly, you've got to strip it all back and start again. And this is where Paul's craftsmanship really shines. Rather than forcing new metal into the wrong shape and taking shortcuts, he starts by carefully recreating the correct profiles and curves. That means measuring, templating, and shaping fresh metal until it's as close as possible to what the factory original intended. You'll notice how he works slowly, checking again and again, because getting the fit right before you even think about welding makes all the difference. This is the impressive part, manufacturing those awkwardly shaped pieces by hand. These aren't simple flat sheets, they have compound curves, folds, and edges, and need to match perfectly with what's already on the car. It takes real skill to create those by eye and by hand, and if you look closely, you will see how he works slowly with the steel in the correct form, offering it up to the car again and again until it fits right. Once he's happy with the new panel, the old badly repaired sections are cut away. Before anything gets permanently attached, every new piece is protected with weld-through primer. That means the hidden faces that will be sealed away after welding are already coated against corrosion. It's a little detail, but it's the kind of thing that ensures the longevity of the repair. And finally, the welding begins. Each panel is carefully tacked into place, checking for alignment and then stitching fully in. Both the front and back are welded to ensure strength. And once this is done, the seams are ground back so that the surface is clean and smooth. You end up with the strong, invisible joins far better than would have been there previously. The end result is a repair that isn't just solid. It looks as though it came straight out of the factory. And importantly, it's built to last. No messy welds, no paper-thin patches. It's a huge amount of work for what, at first glance, might seem like a small area of the car. With the whole corner now fully repaired, we finally got the perfect base for the new battery tray. Luckily, the original brackets were still in good shape, so we didn't need to remake those. We start by offering the new battery tray up into position, checking the alignment carefully. It has to sit exactly where it should, otherwise it can cause headaches later on when fitting the new battery and every aligning panel around it. Once we're happy, the tray is marked out and drilled for plug welding. And again, before anything is permanently fixed, every surface is coated in weld-through primer. And then it's on to welding. Each plug weld is applied in turn, securing the tray firmly to the original brackets and surrounding new metal. Once everything's in place, the welds are ground back to give a smooth, clean finish. The result is a strong, properly protected battery tray that looks factory fitted and is hopefully ready to last decades to come. Now, if you cast your mind back to how this whole area looked at the very beginning, you'll remember how bad things were around the stabilizing bar. The whole corner of the chassis had been rusted away completely. The section where the stabilizing bar should have been bolted onto had been eaten away with corrosion, and the only option was to cut everything out and start afresh. So to tackle the job properly, we purchased a brand new bracket that could be welded directly to the chassis and attached to the new cross member. Every measurement has to be spot on. If the bracket sits even slightly out of alignment, the stabilizing bar won't mount correctly, which can throw off the geometry and the whole front suspension. So Paul begins by carefully marking out exactly where the new bracket will sit, and then welds it in. And once he's happy, Paul starts creating the inner side of the bracket. And this is where the whole real craftsmanship comes in again. These aren't simple off-the-shelf pieces you can just bolt on. The inner sides have to be fabricated from sheet metal, cut, folded, shaped to mirror the original factory design. He takes careful measurements, cuts the metal, checks the fit against the car, and trims as necessary, and then finally welds it all into place. At the same time, a new lower inner panel is fitted. The panel runs between the chassis support and the engine cross member, tying the structure together and providing strength to the whole front end. Again, it has to be precisely aligned so that everything else around it fits properly later on. The panel is carefully positioned, clamped, tacked, and then fully welded. Again, Paul carefully creates a panel to close in the front end of the support. Same process, measure, cut. This one he has to create a lip, weld the lip, and then weld it in. Everything is then ground back, leaving a smooth, seamless finish. With one side complete, Paul repeats the entire process on the other side. It's the same painstaking cycle. Measure, cut, offer up, weld, and finish. The repetition might seem tedious, but it's what ensures both sides are perfectly matched and equally strong. Remember I said earlier that this side of the car had taken a bit of a knock? Well, once we got into it, there was actually quite a lot of straightening to do. The damage wasn't just cosmetic. The metal had been pushed out of shape, and before we could even think about the repairs, all had to be pulled back into line. Once everything was back in shape, another issue became obvious. At the top of the inner wing, there was a nasty rust patch that couldn't be ignored. This wasn't just a flat section either, it was curved, which made the repair a lot more challenging. But as always, Paul shaped the replacement piece perfectly, cutting out the old corroded metal and welding in a fresh, properly formed section. Now, let's take a look at some serious perfection. This section of the front end, the part that holds the grills and ties the lights around, had developed some serious rust. The shapes here are incredibly complicated. Lots of curves, folds, and angles all meeting in one place. For Paul though, it's just another challenge. The first step is to make a template from the opposite side of the car, which is still in good condition. That way we've got an accurate guide to recreate the factory shape. Using that template, the new section is cut from fresh steel and slowly worked until it matches the original. Once it's ready, it's offered up to the car. Check carefully for fit and adjust it until everything lines up perfectly. It's a tricky repair but handled with real skill, and the result is a fresh, solid piece that looks just like the factory intended. With the inner wings and the cross member now complete, it's time to move on to the front valance. For the moment, we're fixing it in place with screws rather than welding, because before anything is made permanent, we need to trial fit all the lights, trims, and of course check alignment with the wings and bonnet. Getting that fit right now saves a lot of headaches later. With the valance attached, the car is finally beginning to take shape again. You can really see the front end coming together. At this point, I've got all the lights, bowls, grills, and begin the process of cleaning and restoring them. It's always a bit of detective work figuring out where parts can be saved and which ones just need to be replaced. But in the end, it was about 50-50. We needed some new fittings, new light bowls, and some lights themselves. But we were really lucky in that we had good headlights, solid rims, and most importantly, a very presentable front grille. Best of all, once everything was trial fitted and all lined up as it should, seeing the front end back together and fitting well is a real milestone, and the car is definitely starting to look good again. Before we can think about fitting the front wings, the doors need to be sitting in their final position. And before we can get the doors right, we have to tackle the sills and the passenger side floor. Now, I'd already mentioned that on this side we have a solid inner sill and a decent looking outer sill. Based on what we found on the driver's side, where both inner sills and middle sills were perfect, I'd assumed this side would be much the same. But with cars of this age, you just never know, and cannot be 100% sure. But to be on the safe side, I purchased a new outer sill, so we can just remove the old one and properly assess the condition of the middle sill at the same time. So Paul got to work cutting the outer sill, and straight away the first opening told us everything we needed to know. Rust. Quite a bit of it. Not exactly a good first impression. The more metal we removed, the worse the picture became. It turned out the middle sill was badly corroded along the bottom, despite the inner and outer looking strong from the outside. It's a clear reminder that even if things look perfect at first glance, you can easily have serious rust hiding between the layers. We kept cutting back further, removing the rest of the outer sill to reveal just how extensive the damage was. Now, to get the whole sill out, we had to cut into the rear wing, peeling away layers of steel that had been welded in the past. And here's where the history of poor repairs become obvious. Multiple layers of old patches stacked one on top of the other. It's exactly why the whole rear wing will eventually need to be replaced. The previous work might have kept the car on the road for a while, but it was never done properly. Patches on patches might be a quick fix, but they look horrendous. The only way to do it right is to strip it all back, replace it properly, and rebuild it as it should have been from the factory. So at this stage, I had to accept what was becoming obvious. This wasn't just a small patch repair anymore. The middle sill was far too gone. And the only real solution is major surgery. Cut it out completely and replace it. But before we could do that, the car needs to be properly braced, so nothing moves out of alignment once the structure is removed. So, while we're prepping for that job, we turned our attention to the passenger floor panels. The first step was cleaning everything back, both on top and underneath, so we could see exactly what we're working with. Now, the floors themselves are actually in very good condition. The new panels were also of excellent quality. Though, as with most reproduction parts, the contours weren't exactly matched up to the originals. That meant some careful planning. Rather than simply laying the new panels over and welding it in, we took time to work out exactly where to cut, so that the joints follow the flattest areas and left the least overlap in the contours. That way, when it's all finished, the floor will look factory correct instead of an obvious patch. So once that plan was set, Paul began cutting the floor, grinding the edges clean, and then trimming the new panel to fit. Now, it's always back and forth process. Cut a little, test fit, cut again, and then shape the panel gradually until it drops into place perfectly. And when we're finally happy with the fit, Paul welded it in securely and ground back the seams, all smooth. The result is the repair looks like it's never even been touched. Once the Raptor liner goes in here, the finish will be excellent, strong, neat, and indistinguishable from original factory work. And then it's the same process for the front section of the floor. First, we set out the plan, marking carefully where the cuts will go. The old floor is then cut away, the edges cleaned, the new panel is trimmed and aligned until it fits perfectly in place. Once everything lines up, Paul welds it in and grinds everything smooth. And with this done, the floor repairs on this car are finally complete. This is a very nice milestone, and we can move on to the next exciting stage, getting them painted and protected for the future. Now, when I first kicked off this project, I said the budget would be between £25,000 and £30,000. And secretly, I was hoping to come in at the lower end of that at about £26,000. And well, I set out the full budget in a video where I was sitting down on a chair right here. And honestly, I don't know why I was sitting down at that stage, because I need to sit down now to give you the budget update. So here's how it looked at the start. I budgeted £12,000 for parts and £14,000 for labor. And in those labor costs, that would have covered welding, painting, the engine rebuild labor costs, engineering. And it seemed reasonable to me at the time based on other projects. Now let's update that, shall we? Parts. Now I've bought most of the body panels and all of the engine and gearbox parts. And it's fair to say that I've overspent massively on body panels. I mean, 2 extra wings, an extra rear wing, a bonnet, a boot lid, left side floors, left side sills, jacking points, anti-roll bar mounts, even a whole new door skin. Now I budgeted £1,400 for panels, and I've spent £4,500. So that's £3,000 over budget right there. Welding. Well, it's fair to say with so many extra panels, we've more than doubled the welding costs. That's another £3,000 over budget. Now, many of you have been asking how many hours Paul has put into the car for welding so far, and it's currently at 140 hours and still more to go. The full engine and gearbox rebuild at Veloci Sport came in exactly on budget. No overspend there. Paintwork. Now, after we've gone through so much trouble to get this body the best we can, I wanted the best possible paint job. So I'm pleased to say that this car has been booked in with Keith at Painting Classic Cars for the full Novel classic car painting process. Now, if you're not familiar with Painting Classic Cars, I will leave a link to their YouTube channel in the description below. Now, on the YouTube channel, they document a lot of their work, and they painted Harry Metcalf's green Jaguar V12 and did a really good job. Now, I have an estimate, and that is £4,000 more than I originally budgeted. But honestly, I think it's going to be worth every penny. And of course, along the way, I've been picking up a lot of little extras like rubbers, small fittings, a whole lot of garage materials, paints, gas bottles, Raptor liner, undercoats, and that's all coming at about £3,000. That wasn't even in the budget. So when you add it all up, that's a total overspend of £13,000, giving me a revised budget of £40,000. Now, to date, I've already spent £19,000 on the engine rebuild, the panels, the metalwork, and that means I've got a total of £21,000 to go on painting, reassembly, suspension, brakes, tires, exhaust, and the interior. So guys, we'll call that an episode where we have made some great progress across the front of this car, the inner wings, the floors, and of course we've discovered we have a middle sill to replace. So please join me in the next episode when we brace up the car, cut out the middle sill, get stuck into the sills and the rest of the side of the car. Thanks all for watching another episode of RC Classic Garage. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. Please give it a like, please subscribe to the channel, and see you all next time. Ciao.